Have you ever seen those clear rectangular boxes hanging on the outside of tanks at your local fish store? This is one of the most versatile tools in the aquarium hobby. It's called an aquarium specimen container or a catch cup. And you can use it for not only holding aquarium fish, your aquarium supplies, like a million uses. So I'm gonna talk about my top 10 ways that I like to use a catch cup and why I can't live without them. So the first method, obviously, that I'm going to mention is transportation of fish. This is what we see in the fish stores all the time. And yes, you could catch the fish with a fish net and then maybe move a few from one tank at a time. But in the case of, right now I'm trying to catch a bunch of juvenile ember tetras. It's probably going to be a little bit difficult because there's a bunch of plants in here. And so what I really want to use is this catch cup. And I really like how I can just hang it on the side of the tank. It's got this really super wide 1 1/8 inch hanging handle. So it can handle, it can hang on a tank that's really thick if you have a really thick glass or acrylic wall. But in my case, it's just going to hang right here. And then while I catch the fish one by one, I can put the juveniles in here and then continue without having to immediately move them. So this is really great for not just catching fish to move from one tank to another, or maybe you have pond fish outside. Now it's winter time, and so you want to move them indoors for the winter. Catch cup would be great. If you have a grow out tank for snails, for example, pest snails, and you want to feed them to your puffer fish, you can just hang that catch cup on the side of the wall, collect the snails with your hands, and then bring them over to your hungry puffer fish. Number 2, we have observation. While I have these ember tetra fry inside of the catch cup, this is a really good chance for me to more closely observe what would usually be a pretty fast moving fish. It's kind of hard to really examine them if I feel like maybe there's a disease on them, what's going on, or if I had a lot more fish, maybe I want to select the best breeding pair, the ones that have the best color, really get that male and female. Or if I have a bunch of juveniles and I'm trying to separate out the males and the females, maybe for selling purposes. So speaking of selling, let me go ahead and move up a white piece of paper behind it. And then you can see now I have this little mini filming studio of sorts in case I want to take pictures or video so that I can better sell my fish to my local fish store or to my local aquarium society. This would be a kind of DIY photo studio that might be a little bit clearer than if I was trying to take a picture of them in the tank. Now, let's say I get in a situation where I have way too many fish, like that one time my 6 shell dwellers turned into over 100, and it is time to offload some of them to my local fish store, local aquarium society, or sell them online. So catch cups, again, really great for selling fish because like you saw I did before, I can just put some water in there, catch out some of the fish that I want, and then pour it straight into the plastic bag for rubber banding it together. Or what I ended up doing was, in that case, I was trying to sell all of them. So I actually caught all 100 plus shell dwellers. I put them in one catch cup, and then I put another catch cup with a plastic bag in it, a plastic fish bag, so that it would sit upright even though it had water in it. And then I could use a small net to net out some of the fish from container 1 and then put it in the bag in container 2. And it was a really nice system. Now, let's say you have the opposite happening where instead of getting rid of fish, you just got in new fish and you want to acclimate them or get them used to your tank water's temperature and water parameters. Now, I personally usually use the plop and drop method where I take the fish in the bag water, I dump it out into a net, that gets rid of all the dirty bag water, and then I just kind of gently put the net into the tank and let them swim out, right? But let's say you have some more sensitive species or shrimp and you really want to make sure that they slowly acclimate to those water parameters. So let's use the case of the ember tetras that I had before. And then this is some of the new tank water of the aquarium they'll be going into. So I will go ahead and gently pour that in here. So the idea is that if I had like this much bag water, I want to pour aquarium water so that it doubles the amount of water in this catch cup. And I would do this every 10 to 15 minutes. Obviously, this acclimation method is only going to work for smaller animals. And then if I find that I have too much water, I'll go ahead and dump out some of the water so that I can continue doubling the amount of aquarium water that goes in there till I feel confident that it's mostly aquarium water. I'll pour all of it out into the net and again release them into the aquarium. My number 5 method of using a catch cup is for breeding purposes. So you know, if you leave the eggs or the fry inside of the tank, a lot of times the adults will predate on their own young. However, if you make a little DIY spawning mop, and that fish is the type to lay eggs in it, you can take the whole spawning mop, once you notice there's a lot of eggs on it, and then put it in the catch cup, and then put some aquarium water in here, and then you can hang it inside of the tank if you want to keep it warm, and then wait for the eggs to hatch that way. And in my case, I had some pygmy corridors, so I just rolled the eggs off with my finger, put them inside the catch cup with a few drops of methylene blue to ensure that the eggs didn't fungus, and then once they hatched out, I used a turkey baster to do water changes, and then that way I could leave the fry inside of here, and then feed them food, and then that way they wouldn't have to travel as far to reach their food. That's very important. That fry, a lot of time, they're wasting a lot of valuable energy looking for food, and I want to make that space as compact as possible so they can feast without moving a lot. Now, there might be cases where for some reason you want to isolate a fish from the rest of the community. So for example, if you have a pregnant guppy mama that is trying to give birth and all the males are bugging her, right? Maybe you want to separate her out temporarily into a catch cup. Or if I have a betta fish, you know, Ginkgo, my betta fish, I didn't know whether or not he was going to be too aggressive for my community tank. So one method may have been to put him in a catch cup and hang it on the inside and see how he reacts to the other fish. Or if you have a sick fish, you know, we never like to see that, but sometimes it's best if we isolate them so they can kind of rest and recover in peace. Maybe add a few floating plants or other, you know, Java moss in there to make them feel more comfortable. You can choose to medicate them inside of it. Just make sure you add an air stone so they have plenty of oxygen. So lest you think that the catch cup is just for carrying fish, I definitely use it to carry supplies. For example, during mealtime, it is great for containing all the different kinds of foods that I want to feed around the house. So my aquariums are not all in the same fish room, and not everybody eats all the same things. So for example, my corridoras upstairs, maybe they're gonna prefer like the sinking wafers. In this particular aquarium, I'm gonna use some pellets. And then my fry tank, I'm gonna use the easy fry food. So everybody gets a little bit of something. I can just hang it on the side of my tank and then feed what I need to. And by the way, this is great for also frozen foods. I could have just dumped a few cubes in here, melted it in some aquarium water, and then used a turkey baster to suck it out and feed to all my tanks, as well as live baby brine shrimp, any kind of live foods. The catch cup is kind of a really great mealtime tray for all the fish. Now, I mentioned before that the catch cup is kind of like a miniature bucket in a way. So if you have a really small nano tank and you want to do water changes with it, if you want to, you know, get some surface scum off, or in my case, I've got evaporation problems from where I am. It's very, very dry here, even when I have an aquarium lid, and so I like to use it just to top off a little water. Obviously, don't forget to add some dechlorinator. I already did, but really great for doing that. Another way people use this for water changes is, let's say you have a hose or some kind of hook that is adding water into your tank. What they'll do is actually put the catch cup inside of the tank, and then they'll have the hose or the hook pouring into the catch cup, and that way it lessens the force of all that water pouring out, so it won't disturb all your substrate and make everything fly up and get all murky. Of course, speaking of tank maintenance, what better way to carry around all my normal tank cleaning supplies than using the catch cup? You know, I've got my dechlorinator, my test strips, my Easy Green, maybe some tweezers or scissors if I need to prune something, and of course my handy dandy algae sponge. All of this stuff is great as I'm kind of, you know, if I have it all together, it's just really easy to pick it up and then bring it near to whichever tank needs maintenance that day. Of course, I saved the best method for last. If you have planted tanks like me, these catch cups are excellent for planted tank maintenance. I love using them to collect excess floating plants, like you can see I've here. If I was cleaning out, you know, hair algae, that would be another great way to kind of, again, collect it, dump it here. I'm not dripping water everywhere. In the case, for example, if I have stem plants like this pearl weed over here, it'd be really great if I'm like trimming them, I could put the trimmings inside the catch cup, take them to another tank, and then I could replant them. So lots of ways to use the catch cup, but this is my favorite. If you haven't tried the catch cup yet, I would definitely recommend it. It's fairly big, it's really sturdy and break resistant, and it definitely makes my fish keeping 100 times easier. So click on this view products button below, as well as the link in our description to get your own. Enjoy Nature Daily.